Welcome back to another episode of Griddyiron Gang. You already know what it is. What we got for you today is a week 2 recap. Thursday night football, it was the Minnesota Vikings on the road facing the Philadelphia Eagles. Take the field, sir.
Well, what can I say? I predicted a loss, which came to fruition, but they did at the end keep it close, like I asked, somewhat close. I mean, a 6-point loss is not that bad when you compare it to last year's
Debacle. Yeah.
bludgeoning. But it was the story of the game. Look, 4 turnovers again, bro. I mean, we lead the league in turnovers. We're shooting ourselves in the foot constantly, and just game after game, me along with everyone else in the fan base, it's why are we constantly just neglecting this O line every offseason, bro? Like, we went out today and we signed Dalton Reiser, which I don't know if he can get up to speed quick enough to be a factor in the to play the Sunday against the Chargers. If he does, we'll see how that goes. If not, it's gonna be another week of just hoping they can protect Cousins as best they can. We'll have to keep an eye on Darisaw, how his injury is coming along. That's a big loss to our left side, obviously. But it's just, you gotta look. I think for every football team, no matter the level, it all starts up front, both sides of the ball, like period. And you saw on our defensive side, we couldn't stop a nosebleed with the run game. Like, and I
Yeah,
think,
Swift had himself a day.
look, I think we gave up like 259 yards of rushing, which is crazy. And they ran the ball on us like 48 times or so, only passed the ball 22, 23 times. So credit to Philadelphia for really realizing, like, okay, they're doing everything they can to get pressure on us and slow our pass game down, which credit to Flores and that defense. We did that. We came out there and we didn't allow them to do squat in the air. But besides that long touchdown in the first quarter, Devontae Smith over top. But credit to them and their coaching staff for quickly realizing, hey, we're going to run the ball until they can prove they can stop it, which we couldn't. So they controlled the clock. They controlled everything with that game, with their run game. And all you can do is hats off to them for that. We have a lot of glaring holes in our front seven when it comes to stopping the run. We don't have the linemen up front on the D line to really do much against the run game. I mean, we have Harrison Phillips. You got, Dean Lowry, but signing him, it was like, you can't sign a guy like that who's been with the Packers and really wasn't a big factor for them. I mean, he holds his own, but he's not one of those household names where you can say we can plug him in and he's going to be a big run stopper. So, the thing with our defense is we got the athletes on the back end. Our depth is suspect, but how are you going to – teams know now that they can run the ball on us for sure. So it's just going to be one of those things that as we go in the season, what can we do with our defensive game plan to negate that as best we can with stopping the run? Because we and you both know running the football sets teams up for ultimate success in winning football games. And when you can't stop the run, your defense is on the field for a long, long time, and it doesn't give your offense much time to get on the field and get stuff going. So we'll see as the season goes how we can turn things around. And, we're down to a quick 0-2, which if you know anything about the NFL, being down 0-2 to start your season, it doesn't bode well for your chances of getting into the playoffs. But we've seen it before, like last year, and maybe again this year with the Bengals. They started 0-2, turned things around, and like last year, they got to AFC Championship. But I don't know. It doesn't ever look good when you start 0-2 because it's a tough hill to climb from that point on. But with this game, it was what I said, but there was still some positives with us. Look, we have such a dynamic offense yeah, we haven't been a factor in running the ball on offense, but when you look at it, the way we're passing the ball and the efficiency we have and the production, you just need one or two of those runs to really break per game, I think, and kind of keep them on their toes a little bit. And that will bode well for us because a lot of teams are going to have trouble stopping our pass game. And as long as we can play good defense to keep that momentum, we're going to be in a lot of these games. We'll come out with some W's, but I don't know, man. This game, it just, to me, it came down to losing it due to leadership. Look, Kwesi's two first draft class, pretty much bust except for Jordan Addison. KOC, he gets in his own way with his play calling. And I love KOC. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to hate on KOC, but Kwesi, it's just this analytical money ball approach. It just, bro, miss me with all of it. I don't like it. And he's on my bad side right now. And until he actually can prove, probably we'll see this offseason, but I don't hold out much hope for him to correct what he's been doing so far up until this point. It doesn't look good. And especially with them taking over when they did, like last year, they kept half or a little more of that old regime squad, so it's still pretty much that Zimmer Spielman squad. More not on defense now, but offense, it's a lot of those Zimmer Spielman guys still. And to that, I also, after this game, I don't think anyone in the nation, regardless of fan base or who you root for, you can't watch Thursday night's game and be like, why is Jordan Addison still the number 3 receiver under KJ Osborne? There's no reason in my mind that Addison should not be number 2 over KJ. KJ he dropped quite a few balls Thursday night. He's not looking dynamic. He's not looking explosive. And I ultimately think that just comes back to me believing like KJ is your prototypical number 3 receiver in the NFL. He's good enough to be that third guy who can get open underneath, do some quick damage underneath the sticks. But he's not a deep threat guy. He's not going to hit you over the top. And I mean, he's kind of like he's kind of like a Jarius Wright, an old Viking, who also wore number 17.
17,
Just that smaller stature receiver. I don't know what to say really about him. He's had catch issues throughout the first 2 games, and it's just at this point with how much we have to turn shit around to get on the winning track. There's got to be some shakeup in that offense going forward. Look, Addison, he's been targeted 7 times. He's got 2 touchdowns, or 7 catches, 2 touchdowns, 136 yards receiving, and a passer rating of 145 when targeted. You do the math, bro. You tell me, like, why are we, only getting him like not even a handful of looks each game right now? It's tough especially when you got JJ on the other side who
I think that's part
is
of it. You
drawing
have the
all the
best receiver
attention.
in the league, and then Hawkinson too. He's probably higher on the tight end ranks than Addison would be on this number 2 wide receiver rank. So those are probably my
Right.
number 1 and 2 targets. So that's probably part of the equation too. But
Yep.
Addison has proven that he can make some plays. He's dynamic after the catch. He goes up and makes the hard catches. I don't think there's any reason why he should be number 3 at all on that depth chart.
No, and he's so explosive. Definitely, to me, he's our quickest and most explosive wide receiver. Obviously, JJ is explosive as well, but JJ is more of that. He's doing a lot of those deeper curl in routes where he's doing a lot of his damage. He's not Randy Moss where he's gonna catch it and he's gonna break it off for 75-yard touchdown and run the length of the field. Like, he's just not. So I don't know. I think it's just both games, there's a lot of positives to take away, but there's so many glaring holes and deficiencies that we have going on right now that it makes it tough to really believe that this is a playoff team right now, and to think that we can go into the playoffs and get an upset or two. It's hard to kind of believe that with this team.
Mm-hmm.
So I take it for what it is right now, and just gotta hope for improvement on both sides of the ball and play calling, and just hope that we can really correct this thing, because being down 0-2, it hurts, but I think the way the things are going in the NFL right now, I wouldn't say our schedule is necessarily the toughest. We have a lot of beatable teams on our schedule. We just have to go out there and play with confidence and play fast and stop turning the ball over. That's number one off jump, is stop turning the ball over, stop making dumb penalties, and just stop being our own worst enemy, because that's what we are right now. You can't watch that game Thursday and say the Eagles went out there and just kicked our ass. Yes, the run game really destroyed us, but overall, the way our defense played, especially out that first half, look, if JJ doesn't have that fumble within the 1 yard line that goes over the pylon and for a touchback, we probably go in, score up 14-10 going into half. So, and that changes the whole momentum and complexion of the game. So, with that being said, the Philly side of things, if I'm a Philly fan, I'm kind of worried right now, because you're not looking like the Philadelphia Eagles you were last year. And that's scary, because the Cowboys right now are looking pretty damn good.
I agree. I think the Vikings are a team that could easily be 2-0 if you just stayed out of your own way. 6 turnovers on the season probably gets you at 2-0, but having, I think, 8 is what it is right now. That's just not going to win you any football games. But like you said, on the Philadelphia side, they don't look like the same team, and I have real concerns about their defensive backfield, because even though Kirk Cousins, he did his thing, he did get sacked a little bit. So I think that front 7 for Philadelphia is okay. Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Brandon Graham, those boys, they can still get after the quarterback. But when they're not, Philadelphia gave up over 300 yards to Kirk Cousins and Mac Jones in week 1 against the New England Patriots. So I think that's something we're going to have to keep our eyes on, is this defensive secondary for Philly, because they do look like they have some chinks in their armor this year for sure, especially when you compare
And
them to
that's
a team like Dallas in their own division.
Yep. And that's the thing too. Like, for anyone who's out there saying like, "Oh, Kirk Cousins can't win in prime time again," this game wasn't on Kirk Cousins, bro. Like, he had 4
Not at all.
touchdown passes, 300 and some yards passing. I think 1 interception. But this came down to play calling, our O line being neglected in the offseason, not doing anything about it.
Well, I think that's the
And
difference
then,
between you and Philly. Your 2 weaknesses mainly are your front 7 on defense and then your O-line on offense, where those are probably Philly's 2
yep,
strengths, is their offensive line and their front 7 on defense. And
right,
that's how you want to build your team, from the inside out. You can figure the rest out
yeah.
later, but I think that's what makes them a championship caliber team, and that's something you guys are definitely lacking in.
And that's the thing too, is I say this is O line and D line. Those pieces are hard to come by compared to playmakers. There's always going to be playmakers you can go out and pick up. It's the offense and defensive linemen where it's the bucket is so unfull compared to playmakers in the NFL.
It's
Like, you
limited.
really got to. It's limited. You got to really, especially, and a lot of these guys on offensive defensive line, they're homegrown. It's getting drafted to good spots, and they build them up from being drafted. And we haven't drafted well for D line or an O line in quite some time. So I don't know what you do. And then you got JJ's contract. You got the Kirk Cousins situation. Is he here next year? Is he not? I mean, look, to me, I've said this before. I still don't think we're going to be bad enough this season to have a high draft pick. I still don't think we're going to be good enough to, you know, do much in the playoffs or even get to the playoffs. So you're at a kind of crossroads of what the hell do we do? And for me, it's like, if you could try to convince Kirk to be more team friendly with his contract going forward, that's your best bet to have success in the future is keeping him on board and building from the other spots that are your total weaknesses.
Yeah, at this point, I think that is the best option. Luckily for the Vikings, they were not the only team in the NFC North that was defeated this past weekend. Next, we have Seattle, who traveled to Detroit to take on the Lions, a game that pretty much went the way that we expected. A lot of points, a lot of fireworks. Usually, when two teams are in the 30s, you can probably consider that a very entertaining, pretty good game, and I think it was for the most part. Jared Goff, I think he was closing in on the all-time record for attempts, or maybe it was completions without an interception. But in this game, he did throw an interception, and it was costly. It turned out to be a pick six, and that was the difference in this game. Seattle does get a touchdown in overtime, takes a 37-31 victory. What'd you think about this game? I thought Seattle was one of those teams that took an unexpected loss week one, had a big task ahead of them facing this Detroit team, the offense specifically. And I think they showed up to play, and big win, obviously. Now they're 1-1 on the season. That division still probably belongs to San Fran, but a playoff spot is now open again for Seattle.
Yeah, I think Seattle's definitely a good enough team to be in the playoffs. I think we should expect them to eventually get one of those last spots for the playoffs. At this point. But to me, this is number one. I said I texted you this. I think when you just keep watching Detroit and their offense and how they're operating. This Detroit offensive coordinator, I don't remember his name. I think it's like Ben Johnson or something like that.
I think that's right. Yeah,
This dude is obviously gonna become a quick hot commodity for a head coach opening that opens up pretty soon. Just what he's been doing with that offense and how he's getting them to play and the spots he puts his guys in to succeed. Because you look at this team and Detroit is not a team filled with household names or star players. It's just very good players across the board.
mm-hmm.
And the thing that worries me about Detroit, though, that it showed up Sunday against Seattle is it's their defense, bro. That defensive backfield is questionable at best. It's just and that's why it's going to be interesting when it comes time. Those last two games, out of the two games out of the last 3 weeks of the season, Vikings, Detroit,
16-18.
That's what the NFL is expecting to come down to is us and them to find out who wins the division.
Mm-hmm.
If that can come to fruition, those are going to be two highly sought after and highly watched games to close out the season. But like I said, we have our glaring holes, we have our weaknesses, but with how high powered our offense is, can Detroit's defensive backfield keep up with us? And going forward, I think a lot of people have to watch that about them, because one thing you don't want to do as Detroit is have those type of problems all season long, especially with how much hype you've been given throughout the offseason. This is a good team, don't get me wrong, but I think that, like I said, they're just overly hyped too much, in my opinion. And I'm not saying it's the same old Detroit. I don't think it is, but you just going from where Detroit has been for so long to now getting this much hype, and now you lose the way you did on Sunday. Do you let that old Detroit mentality creep back in? Do you succumb to the pressure of this, gauntlet of the season we have coming up? And I mean, I don't know. It's just, I think overall, you watched that game yesterday. Detroit should have won that game, in my opinion. They outplayed them pretty much in every facet. They left the door cracked open a little bit, and Seattle took advantage. So, but credit, I think there's two solid teams that played each other. We predicted a shootout, which it was. And we both said, like, we needed to see, some more encouraging signs from Geno to come away from this game feeling good about Seattle. And I think he did that. I think he did enough to do that. But I think this was just Detroit letting one slip through their fingertips. And this one was on them more so than Seattle going out. They went out and took it from them, but more so on Detroit for the way they lost the game than how Seattle won the game. Because you take away that pick six, they probably don't win.
Yeah, but I think that's part of the problem with Detroit is they're relying on perfect games from their quarterback to be successful because they're giving up 30 points a week. It was a surprise that they
Yeah.
didn't do the same to Kansas City, but we knew Seattle is a team that can come out here and put up some points and points in a hurry, which they did. Yeah, I agree to an extent that Detroit is getting a little bit overhyped, but I do think they have first, second seed potential in that division. So, I mean, I guess the hype is warranted because you got to
Oh
figure
yeah.
that's probably 9, 10, maybe 11 wins if you get a sneaky
Oh
win here
yeah.
or there. So, I mean, how are we supposed to talk about a team who's projected to win the division? You know what I mean?
Look, that's what all NFC North teams lost this week, which obviously bodes well for Vikings to hit like kind of a reset button and kind of say, okay, now our season really starts. We let two slip away and we shot ourselves in the foot, but now we got to quickly turn this thing around because we're only one game out of first place in the North, which is funny when you think about it because look, the NFC North is one of the worst divisions in football this year. Let's not get it twisted.
So
Like
far.
it is. So that's why I said like the Vikings they got to find a way to regroup and get their foot on the gas pedal as best they can because you go Sunday and you lose to Chargers, man, it's really not looking good, So
Right.
I don't know. But like for this game, I think this was more so came down to Detroit had that costly pick six and they just kind of they didn't know how to regroup after that. I think they kind of were playing not to lose, and that cost them the game.
I think losing Montgomery at running back for a few weeks, maybe longer, is going to hurt this team going forward as well. They got 2 new running backs in after they got 2 running backs out this offseason. So losing one of those guys is going to be a big blow for this offense, what they like to do with that pass game by setting up the run first. So
Right.
that's going to be interesting to see going forward as well. Staying in the NFC North, we have Green Bay on the road at Atlanta. I thought this game had game of the week potential, and Green Bay was up 2 scores. They ended up shitting the bed in the fourth quarter, though. Atlanta came back, and now they are 2-0 on the season. Green Bay sits at 1-1. If you look at the stat sheet, Jordan Love probably had a pretty good game. I think if you watch the game, he leaves a lot to be desired out there, but he was the better of the 2 quarterbacks on the field. When I watch this Atlanta team, obviously you see what I'm doing. I'm repping Baltimore. There was talks in this offseason before we signed number 8. He might be a Falcon. I'm looking at Bijan Robinson. I'm looking at these weapons they got over there with Lamar Jackson. That could be real scary. So I'm very thankful that that is not the case because we'll get to it later. But Lamar looked phenomenal yesterday. So Green Bay on the road had this one in the bag. They ended up losing it. What'd you think about this one?
Look, I mean, for me, credit to Atlanta for winning the game. I think I picked Green Bay, but that was more so due to I'm not a Ritter believer, and he did nothing for me on Sunday to really enhance me to believe in him any more than I
No,
already do.
not at all.
So I just think though that Atlanta has a really solid defense though. I think that they fly around, they'll hit you, and your offense has to bring their A game. And look, you're down. You don't have Aaron Jones on Green Bay this week. That hurts you immensely. Jordan Love, I think he did what he could when he
And
was out
Christian
there.
Watson either.
No, but there's still a lot to see from him too to really kind of get that
Yeah,
hype train going for me.
yeah. That's your 2 top weapons though, so that
But
does hurt.
so I don't know. For me though, when I look at this game, it's more so like, bro, you damn near got the same defense you've had the past 4 or 5 years in Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
It's that defensive side of the ball is so lackluster. You're supposed to be one of the top units in the league, and you don't play like it. I don't know if it's the defensive coordinator. I don't know, if it's on the head coach. I don't know, but your defense is letting your promising offense down a whole lot so far, and it's not a good sign of things to come when you think about this team and where they're trying to go with their first year without Rodgers. So it's not it. And that's the thing what I was saying too about last week. Everyone in Green Bay is all hyped up because they beat the Bears team by 18. But when we get to that game, we'll talk about that. But the Bears they're bad, bro. they're bad. So you went out and you did what you should have done to the Bears the week 1. Period. You played a little bit of a better team in Atlanta. lost by 1 point. And to me, this falls on your defense. It's just your offense played well enough to win. Your defense shit the bed. But then you look at that last possession of the game in overtime for Green Bay, and that's when Jordan Love kind of showed us why he shouldn't be hyped the way he is.
Yeah.
The thing he went 0 for 4, just he's overthrowing receivers, wide open receivers at that. So that's why I say the NFC North is just a bad division this year. This division is trying to find that old NFC North style ball still, and I don't know. It's going to be a weird year to watch it play out. I just think, look, the Packers are going to have growing pains all year long, plain and simple. They're good enough to get to the playoffs if they somehow do. Like, they are good enough to get there. But they're going to have an immense amount of growing pains throughout the course of the season, and I think it's going to shoot them. So it's going to end up shooting themselves in the foot more often than not, and I think that's what holds them back out of the playoffs this year. I think maybe next year they have a better shot at living up to the hype.
Yeah,
but it all starts with defense with this team because they have all the playmakers on that side of the ball, and they just didn't do much, and you gave up 20 to the Bears. You gave up 25 to the Falcons. If you're any team, are you really scared to go up against these Packers? Probably not.
I agree with that. Coming into the season, that was for sure the strong suit of this team was that defense, especially that D-line, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, the rest of those guys out there. We know Atlanta loves to run the ball. So coming into the game, that's obviously number one thing on the whiteboard is that Atlanta's going to run the ball. They got plenty of running backs to do that with. Desmond Ridder has some legs too. For those guys not to be able to really contain that run at all, that was a little worrisome for me. And then, like you said, giving up 20 points to a abysmal Chicago Bears team and then 25 to an Atlanta team who nobody thinks this is an elite offense by any means, that does raise some eyebrows if I'm a Green Bay fan. We'll finish out the NFC North with Chicago at Tampa Bay. I think Tampa Bay will start on a good note. Is one of the surprise teams in the league here, sitting at 2-0. Probably the surprise team, honestly. I mean, nobody probably would have expected this start from them. Baker looks good. Mike Evans looks good. The defense looks solid. Granted, they played against a terrible Chicago Bears team. If you look at the other side of things, Chicago might be the only team in the league who didn't get any better. I mean, I won't say that about Arizona because they don't have their starting quarterback. But Chicago really doesn't look like they practiced, didn't have OTAs, didn't have spring ball, didn't do anything. They look the same. Justin Fields looks terrible. The coaching looks terrible. The offensive line looks terrible. DJ Moore had a few plays here and there, but outside of that, Chicago has nothing to offer me right now. They're in that Denver category right now for me.
Yeah, I agree. The Bears are they're putrid to watch. What can you really say? They're just bad, bro. And I'm not trying to throw shade or anything, but you got to call it like it is. They're bad, and what's scary is they're not doing enough to surround Justin to make him any better or let him progress in his young career. Which, when you do that, that sets him up for a bad career. And it's sad to see a guy like that much athleticism. The potential is there, but I'm not holding out any hope to see Justin Fields progress enough to become one of those top 7 quarterbacks in the league. It's just not looking like it's going to happen. No. And it's going to be a sad story when it's all said and done if I had to guess. But, and even though they're as bad, like the O-line's bad and this and that, you got DJ Moore, you got Chase Claypool, who's nothing to write home about, but he's still a playmaker out there. And, Justin Fields, he has a lot of accuracy issues.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look good when he throws the ball. So there's not much to say besides that for the Bears. They might get lucky, squeak out a few games here and there this season, but they're one of the, like you said, Denver category, just putrid all the way around.
They might be in the Caleb Williams, Shadir Sanders sweepstakes in a couple weeks here. It's looking real bad for Chicago. Next, we have Las Vegas on the road at Buffalo. Las Vegas came out swinging early. I think they got up 7-0 on Buffalo. But that was pretty much it. Buffalo wiped the floor with Las Vegas pretty much the way we expected them to. Devontae Adams goes out with an injury, so that did not help the Raiders' case at all. 38-10, Buffalo, another one of those teams who had a terrible week one loss, who was expected to bounce back in week two. Similar to Seattle, they did just that. What'd you think of this game here?
I think it was just a great bounce back for Buffalo. I don't have much to say about the Raiders side of things because I think we know what kind of team they are. They're going to be middling of the pack to below that. I mean, they're not that great. Buffalo came out and did what they're supposed to against a team like this, and I think that kind of boosts that morale and confidence in that locker room going forward. Saying, "Hey, look, we're still here. We're top dog in the AFC still. We laid an egg in week one. It's early, but they look like the Buffalo I'm used to seeing. So I don't have much to knock them on. I think they're still going to be in it at the end of the season amongst those top AFC teams. They just got to be more consistent is all I'll say.
4 turnovers for Josh Allen week one, 0 turnovers for Josh Allen week two.
Yeah.
Maybe 1 or 2 a game. That's reasonable for the way that he plays. I don't expect 0 turnovers out of anybody every week. But if we can get more of the second game, the week 2 Josh Allen, that's what Buffalo fans and that Buffalo organization is looking for.
Yep. Right.
They're a contender, obviously. We have a couple of contenders here who played each other in the AFC North. We have Baltimore on the road at Cincinnati. Baltimore started the game. I thought they pretty much had a perfect drive. I think they had 1 incompletion that was called back due to a penalty and a run that went for half a yard maybe. Other than that, every play was positive. We go down, score a touchdown, and we never really look back. I think we had a balanced attack throughout the game, good rushing attack, good passing game. I think this Lamar to Zay Flowers connection, it's really exciting me, and I think all the Baltimore fans are excited about it. Zay Flowers is a souped-up Jordan Addison if you haven't seen him play. He's quick. He makes Rashad Bateman look like Hakeem Nicks. He makes Odell Beckham look like Marquise Colston. I mean, he's fast. He can get in and out of that box, in and out of his cuts on a dime. It's unfortunate we lost J.K. Dobbins. We talked a little bit about this before. We're going to rely a lot on Justice Hill. Rely a lot on Gus Edwards. He had a big run to seal the victory for us against the Bengals on Sunday. So overall, I know we're bitten with a lot of injuries right now. Marcus Williams, Marlon Humphrey, 2 offensive linemen, J.K. Dobbins, obviously. OBJ now has an ankle injury. Seems to be the case every year, but we battle through it. We got a big victory over a team who has pretty much owned us over the last few years since they got Joe Burrow, I guess, for lack of a better term. They really been handing us everything that we wanted to handle over these past few years. So it was a good win. On the other side of things, I mean, Shannon Sharp said it best. I don't know any player who comes into the season hurt and gets healthier. So are we concerned about Joe Burrow right now? These first 2 weeks of the season, obviously, we know he threw 82 yards for week 1. Didn't do a lot better week 2. Is this something that we're going to be concerned about for the Cincinnati Bengals going forward?
Yeah, I think it is. I think he had said after the game that he re-aggravated that calf injury. So that doesn't bode well for this team, especially that offense going forward. I think this is a different 0-2 Bengals to start the season than it was last year.
For sure.
I think it's a tougher schedule. So I think they're really reeling right now. And I mean, when you don't have 100% healthy Joe Burrow on that team, you look a lot different. So I'm not even sure this Cincinnati team can do enough. I know it's early, but I just don't see them being a scary playoff team this year. It's a team you have to really worry about much. Obviously, you have to worry about every team in the NFL to a degree, but they don't look like the Bengals we know of recent. So I'm worried about the Bengals. I think it's going to be a tough hill to climb for them going forward, and it's not looking too pretty right now. Especially if you're putting out Burrow on the field every week, that's going to be, playing not to re-injure that calf. You're in for a world of hurt. So
You're going to have an Eli Manning type of season, not a Joe Burrow
it's
type season.
yeah, it's tough. It's tough, bro. Especially with just how prolific they can be and just how high powered they can be, but to the Ravens, I think they played a great game. It's unfortunate they're always dealing with these injuries, though. It's what would it be like? What kind of Ravens team could we expect week to week if they're consistently healthy? Like
No
they
kidding.
have they have the pieces there to be one of those high powered teams that's elite amongst Kansas City, San Fran, Dallas, Philly. Like they're right there. It's just the health issues is just the biggest thing right now. So, and that's been the issue. So, um, but I think the Ravens are definitely one of the top AFC teams this year. I think they have a good chance of taking this division. Um, they just got to keep it rolling. I mean, you want to see a little bit more better, not better, but consistent accuracy from Lamar. I think if he can get more of a rapport with this new group of receivers, if OBJ can stay on the field more than half the season, then we're getting somewhere. Because we know the Zay Flowers thing is real. Like that's a real thing, and it's exciting to watch. They still have Mark Andrews.
It's
But yeah,
Tyreek and Kelsey light, very light.
yeah. But and then I know Lamar can run the ball, obviously, but you want to have a good ground game behind him, and that's kind of what worries me right now is with Gus Edwards, Justice Hill. It's can you sustain that throughout the whole season to make it relevant enough to have teams worried about that? I don't know. I mean,
Right.
yesterday it just looked a little iffy with them running the ball, and especially
Well,
Justice Hill. I mean, he's not the biggest running back, but
we look
he's shifty,
phenomenal.
he's speedy. But look, all I can say is I like the Ravens. I've been saying it all offseason. I was predicting big things from this team this year, and I still think there's a lot of season left. They're 2-0, and I think that my prediction is they'll take the division. But you want to see this is a team you want to see them have consistent week to week success, not just come out week 1 and 2, play good, and then you fall off week 3, play iffy week 4, and then you back great ball next 2 weeks. Keep the consistency there all season long, so that at the end of the season, we're pounding the table for the Ravens being one of those AFC Championship type teams.
Yes, sir. Not to get ahead of myself, but next week we play Indianapolis with no AR. I mean, we should probably handle that team starting off 3-0. That bodes really well for us. But
Yep.
these were two contenders in the AFC. We'll talk about another one here in Kansas City. He was on the road at Jacksonville. I said the wide receivers wouldn't kill the Chiefs, and they didn't, but 12 penalties and 3 turnovers almost did kill the Chiefs. I think we do have some concerns, maybe not as big as they are for Cincinnati, but we do have some similar type of concerns for Kansas City. Um, for Jacksonville, to a lesser extent, you're like Buffalo, you're like the Chargers, you're like the Dallas Cowboys, and you're kind of like the Vikings because you have all the talent in the world, but when are you going to show up when the games matter the most? You had,
Mm-hmm.
I think you were 0-4 in the red zone in this game. Trevor Lawrence is throwing passes out of bounds. He's throwing passes where guys can't catch him. He's throwing Stephen Ridley into the field goal stanchion, almost dislocating his kneecap. These guys had every opportunity to beat this Kansas City team, especially with the way Kansas City was trying to beat themselves. To only put up 9 points, I mean that's terrible, and that's AFC South for you. That's what this division has been like over these past few years. So
Yeah.
I don't know much more that I can say about Jacksonville, but they are really in that category right now for me as the Chargers. You know, they're just not one of those teams that I have confidence in and week out. What do you think about this game?
Look, I think Jacksonville they could have done a lot more to bettered their chances at beating the Chiefs yesterday, and it showed. They were right there to me all game long with the Chiefs playing up to their level. I mean, not saying that was a good level or anything, but they were right there to go take that game from the Chiefs, and they just didn't do much to secure that. So, and like you said, 9 points ain't going to get it done. On the other side with the Chiefs, it's this Chiefs team this year. I know it's only 2 weeks in, but they definitely look like they're the most beatable Chiefs team since Pat's coming to the league. And that's a scary thought for this Chiefs team and this quote unquote dynasty they have. I mean, you got Kelsey, you got Chris Jones, you got Patrick Mahomes. But what else do you really have that scares teams. You're another team that has very good players, but you don't have the star power you once had on both sides.
Yeah, no
I think
Matthew,
I think
no
for the
Tyreek.
Chiefs to try to get back to the Super Bowl, let alone the AFC Championship, it's a big hill to climb. Being a team that looks very beatable, especially of your stature, doesn't bode well because I don't think teams are going to play. Teams are not going to be afraid to go out there and be aggressive with you. They're not going to. They're not going to do what they usually do and play not to lose. They're going to be more aggressive with you and try to take the game to you. And I think even with how clutch Pat Mahomes is and how good he is, he can't. I don't think he's good enough to shoulder this team on his own the whole season long.
I'm not gonna say that. Whole season, that might be a stretch. But when it comes down to it, yeah, I'll give him that responsibility. But yeah, I can say for 4 months, I don't want to give him that responsibility. I'm not saying that he can't, but that's kind of looking like the direction this team is gonna have to go. It's gonna have to be on 15 for this year until they
It's
figure out
just
what they're
tough,
gonna
bro,
do in this
because
offseason.
it's tough because look, they have so many issues already with a bunch of O-line penalties, especially on that right side.
Hmm.
You, you got no really run game to speak of.
At
So,
all.
and do you
Yeah.
besides Kelsey, how much do you trust Kadarius Toney? How much do you trust Sky Moore? I mean, it's those are smaller receivers. Number one, I mean,
Hmm.
you don't have a big body besides Kelsey who can go down the field and get that jump ball. So, as a defense, I'm keying on Kelsey all game long, and I'm telling Pat, use your other guys to beat us because I don't think you can.
Yep. Next, we'll stay in the AFC South where we have the Los Angeles Chargers who went on the road to face the Tennessee Titans. On the road coming into this game, I think we probably still had faith in the Chargers that they could be a contender. Coming out of this game, we have more concerns about them than we probably do the Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. Also coming into the game, would you have a quick guess on how many games Tennessee had consecutively lost?
No.
8. So going back to
8.
last season, they had lost 8 straight games. So as a Chargers fan, I really think I'm looking at the coach here, and I'm putting you on the hottest seat that there's been in the past
Oh,
few
Brandon
seasons. I
Staley,
mean, this is
his seat's got to be sizzling, bro.
yeah, you got it from here. I know you hate the dude just as much as I do.
Look, what can you say? You just watch the game and you see the decisions he's making, and it's head scratching. I mean, I don't know, bro. I don't know.
No, he does.
They
I'm
got they got the star power. They got the athletes. They got the weapons. It's
If
what are
there's a
we
team
doing
on
out there
paper
in
that should
LA,
put it
bro?
together, that is a team right there. No question
Right.
about it.
And I mean, look, I don't
And
know the
at least
numbers
the
off the top of my
Cowboys,
head.
they're winning 10, 11 games. Chargers are they're coming down to week 18 to get into the playoffs. I mean,
Yeah, right.
it's just unacceptable, bro. It's
What
unacceptable.
right. And you're starting the season this way already 0-2, and you already know this Chargers team is going to be facing injury issues all year long, like they always
Hmm.
do. I mean, you had Eckler out, which didn't bode well.
Right.
When is Mike Williams going to go out for a length of time? When is Keenan Allen going to go out for a length of time? I mean, you had Eric Kendricks out already. It's tough, bro. I mean, there's only so much Herbert can do. I mean, people can call him overrated all you want, but he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and who any team would gladly take on their squad to make him better.
Yeah.
So
I
it's just one of those things where it's just this is firmly on Brandon Staley as the head coach.
Yeah, in a different way, like you were saying about Kirk, it's not on Kirk that you lost that game. Part of this is on Herbert, though, because he does have opportunities to make these plays in the fourth quarter. He always has a possession or
Mm-hmm.
two where he can lead his team down, and he doesn't optimize that opportunity. So, for that
Right.
reason, I mean, we want to solidify him in that top 5. I may have to reconsider my list after this weekend because Tennessee is not a team that you had any business losing to, especially
No.
when Derrick Henry isn't the same kind of running back. Yeah, he did have a touchdown. DeAndre Hopkins doesn't have a catch in the first half. After what Tannehill did week 1 with 3 interceptions, he comes out here and looks like freaking young Tom Brady against you guys. It's just unacceptable what is happening with this Chargers team, honestly.
It's terrible, bro. And I mean, I think it's funny because I think now it makes for Chargers Vikings to be much must-watch TV next Sunday because you got two 0-2 teams who are trying to get their season back on track, and it's going to be, two coaches. Which coach gets in their way first? You know what I mean?
No kidding.
I don't know. It's Chargers, man. It's disappointing because I feel like the past 2-3 years we've been hyping them so much, and it's just kind of gotten to the point where it's like I don't think anything's going to change until they really
And Duds.
correct that coaching spot.
Finish out this AFC South division. We have the Indianapolis Colts who traveled to Houston to take on the Texans. I think both of these teams have shown immense confidence in their rookie quarterbacks. A lot of that playbook seems to be open for Anthony Richardson, but I believe C.J. Stroud has thrown 91 pass attempts in the first 2 weeks. So, however much of the playbook Anthony Richardson has open, I don't think it's as much as C.J. does. They seem to feel very comfortable with him at the helm. I know week 1 he did not throw an interception. I'm not sure about his stats week 2, but the last time I did see, he did not throw one on about 30 attempts or so. So he's taking care of the ball. As far as rookie quarterbacks, he's doing kind of what we expect. He's not winning games, but he's not really losing games, which I think is a positive sign for Houston. I just don't think that they have the talent to compete with some of these teams. But Indianapolis was a team who I thought that they competed well against with on paper. For Indianapolis to put up 31 points with the lack of talent that they have, I think is very impressive. And kudos to them, especially with AR going out. We all know how I feel about Gardner Minshew. Probably top 2-3 backup quarterback in the league, could probably start on a couple of these teams. So, yeah, I do like Gardner Minshew, but the weapons out there, we already know. We don't know, and that's the problem. So for them to put up 31 points, impressive. Houston, I thought they would show a little bit more resiliency on defense, especially with the head coach that they have over there in D'Amico Ryans, but it's a young team. A lot of growing pains for Houston for sure.
Yeah, it wasn't a game that I had my eyes glued to the TV, but look, the biggest thing I take out of this is like we got to find a way where we can keep AR healthy, and we got to let him know like we got to be smarter with our decisions and when to run the ball and when to take hits and not. This is the second week in a row now he's not played a full game.
Yeah.
So it's you want to prolong his career as best you can, and I just think with him it's kind of like a Josh Allen type thing. Just don't go out there and put your body in bad situations. The second touchdown he ran Sunday was kind of a freak thing just because he had already crossed the goal line, but the defenders were still right on top of him. So he got hit, and when he fell back, his head just whiplashed, hit the turf, and it was, concussion time. So, it's tough to see, but I think through 2 games though, AR looks like he's very dynamic. He's definitely a great runner. Needs more time and improvement in the pass game, but he's a guy I think who has all the tools to be a top quarterback in this league if he can get there. But yeah, to put 31 up with not much, talent on that team, especially Jonathan Taylor back there, it's impressive. Even if it's against a team like Houston. Houston side of things, I like what I see out of C.J. Stroud. Like you said, not turning the ball over. He's not winning games, but he's also not losing games. I think with Houston, it's just the thing with it is they're not a team with a lot of talent all around. So it's going to be tough sledding to go out and finish off these games for them. And that's, they'll be in a lot of them. They're going to be battle tested. They're going to be tough to beat week in and week out. But when it gets to crunch time at the end of the game, they're a team that you're going to be able to squeak by if you're having a rough go to start.
Let's move over to these afternoon games where you have the New York Giants on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. I believe at one point the Giants were down 21-0 in this game, making 61-0 their deficit on the season. And I think this was about the point of the day where you were texting me like this team is a joke. It's crazy. It's over. And I was right there agreeing with you. But Daniel Jones ends up about a 26-37, 321 yards, 2 touchdowns, leads a comeback for the New York Giants over the wonderful and amazing Arizona Cardinals, 31-28. New York keeps their playoff hopes alive, keeps their season alive, but unfortunately, they do lose Saquon Barkley for at least 3 weeks. Their next 3 games are at San Fran, versus Seattle, and at Miami. So you got this one, but you could easily be 1-4 by the time Saquon gets back.
And I think that's what it's going to be, bro. I just don't think this New York team's that good. Danny Dimes got paid obviously this offseason. That's not the move he should have made, in my
Benny
opinion.
Dollars, man.
Shit. I mean, I don't know, bro. Look, I think last season the way they squeaked into the playoffs and got a playoff victory, it was what can you say? That shit to me is a fluke because they're gonna end up being a piss poor team this year. Especially in that NFC East. There's no way you're catching Dallas. There's no way you're catching Philly. I mean, you can get
Is
2-0
Washington
against
2-0?
Washington possibly, but look, Washington's not a team to take lightly. So I think NFC East might be the best division in football, honestly. But the Giants, look, I don't know what to say about them, bro. They're just, what can you say that gets you excited about this team? It's Daniel Jones doesn't do it for me at quarterback. Darren Waller's already going through injury issues. You don't got enough playmakers on the outside. Saquon's out in the next 3 weeks, which absolutely is brutal for that offense. And then that defense, it's like they're decent. They're good enough to keep them in the games. How do you go out there and play the way you did, even though it's a comeback win? How do you go out there and play the way you did against Arizona, bro?
I have no idea. I would like to think if these next 3 games were like Green Bay, Atlanta, Carolina, they could fare pretty well. But they're playing 3 teams that are going to put up 30 a game on them, and they're not going to be able to score that. So it's looking pretty scary for New York right now. I know we're just trying to talk about this game, but I don't care to talk about the Cardinals, so I got to find something else to talk about. And that's what I'm talking about. So, yeah, New York going forward. I mean, Dayball put together a great season last year. Like you said, they squeaked into the playoffs. 3 teams out of that division got in there. I don't think that's going to be the case this year. Washington is 2-0. If they make the playoffs this year, we can't do this pod anymore because I would have no answer for that, and I would have no answer for the people when they ask me, Sam, how, huh? And I'm just stuck, bro. But
Bro,
we can move on.
Yeah, look, there ain't much, especially on the Arizona side of things in this game. There ain't much to say, bro. I mean, next week they're gonna show why they're the Arizona Cardinals, and you're gonna look back at this game and be like, how the hell did the Giants go down 20-21-0 and let this happen? Like, it's embarrassing.
Hopefully that's a wake-up call for them, but I just don't think they're going to be able to put it together with some of the pieces they're missing at this point in the season. We can stay in that NFC East, though, where we had the New York Jets on the road facing Dallas. And Dallas has been making quick and easy work of their New York opponents this season, outscoring them 70-10 for an average of 35 points a game and 5 points against. I mean, they had a quiet offseason, man, but they're playing loud on the field. Micah Parsons looks like the best defender in the league right now. We talked a little bit before, but that first play he had where he got the sack on Zach Wilson, really a tone setter. As far as the Jets go, man, I mean, Zach Wilson, bro, probably couldn't have had a harder start to the season. Getting thrown in that week 1 game against a Super Bowl contender in Buffalo, coming back week 2 against probably the best defense in the league. I know we don't expect a lot from you, but you went under 50%. You threw 3 picks again, and you're just not going to be the answer. This Jets defense is probably good enough to lead this team to 10 wins, 11 wins, maybe in a playoff spot. But we already know the fate of this team once they hit the playoffs, man. It's inevitable that Zach Wilson will cost this team, and that's the season. So it's really unfortunate that Aaron Rodgers went down. On Dallas' side, which I think was the theme of the week for a lot of these quarterbacks, they're really efficient on offense. Dak really did his thing, 31-38, 2 touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had probably one of his better games of his career. And offensively, this team seems to still be clicking with Mike McCarthy at the helm instead of Kellen Moore. But I think the story for this Dallas team right now is defensively, because I think neither you or I trust this offense to carry this team for the whole season, and it's going to be on
No.
number 11 and the rest of that unit over there.
Yeah, which I think I think it can happen. I mean, I'm a Cowboy hater through and through, but like I said to you yesterday after the game, I'm like, I'll pay them their respect after this performance, especially defensively. I mean, that front is just so scary, and they get after it like no other team right now, bro. And it's when you're a true football fan, it's beautiful to watch. I mean, it just is like, and Micah looks like he's taken a whole different step this year in the right direction, and that's a scary thing for teams who are going up against them week in and week out. I mean, the pressure they can generate just from their front, just from their down linemen, and then Micah flying off the edge. Look, this is going to be Dan Quinn's last year as defensive coordinator there. He'll be a head coach next year.
Yeah, probably so.
So I think this is the year Dallas really has to take advantage of it if they want to get to that Super Bowl and try to win it. I mean, this is the year because it's all right there for them. They have the players on both sides of the ball, but it's going to come down to that the defense is what's going to do it for them and take them over the top. The offense just has got to limit turnovers and not be their own worst enemy. And if that can do that, and that offense can do that, then we'll see come playoff time when we're doing this pod, like how confident we are in them and getting to that NFC Championship, to that Super Bowl, and maybe hoisting that Lombardi at the end. But they're right. They're defensively, they're definitely, I think, the best team in all of football right now. Even more so than the 49ers, which I still like them a little bit better just because of the offense component they got. But look, you got to give credit to Dallas. Even though the Jets didn't have Rodgers, I think even if they had Rodgers, it would have been tough sledding against that defense because, look, that Jets O-line right now looks putrid. They can't block for shit. They can't they can't generate enough time for any quarterback behind them to do much with the football.
Yeah, it does look bad.
So with that being said, I think the disappointment in the Jets this week lies within their defense. I mean, I said to you, I don't understand why. I would have had, especially with Brandon Cooks not playing, I would have had Sauce Gardner traveling that whole field with CeeDee Lamb to try and shut him down.
Yeah, there's really no
Because you
excuse
take
for
him
that.
away. No, if you take him away, I think it's more tough sledding for that Jets or the Cowboys offense than for the whole 4 quarters, because the running game, it's good, but it's just Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn. I don't know if one of them, I think at some point will
Yeah,
go down,
I agree.
and it won't look good after that.
Yeah. But I agree with you that Sauce should have traveled with Lamb, because their second DB is better than Noah Brown, who would have been their second wide receiver with Brandon Cooks being out. And then
Yep.
I got faith in C.J. Mosley in that linebacking core, Quentin Williams in that front four to stop Tony Pollard and Deuce Vaughn for the most part. So if you take away Dak's number one
Mm-hmm.
option, we know he's not the best quarterback. Yeah, he had a great game, but things could have looked a little different. I still would have had Dallas winning this game just because Zach Wilson, I'm not going to pick him against any team who is above average probably. But I thought New York could have did a little more with their coaching staff to shake things up here.
Yeah, I think me picking the Jets in this one didn't have much to do with Zach Wilson at all. It was just I thought this Jets defense would have came out and looked like the hyped up defense they were all offseason, and it
Yeah.
just didn't happen. It looked like they had a week 1 hangover.
And credit to Dallas's offensive line. They're not what they used to be when they had Zeke in the early 2010s, but they have grabbed some pieces over the last few years and revamped that offensive line. And they're very formidable, and they're one of the better units in the league. So that worked to neutralize that New York Jets front yesterday. So especially when
Yeah.
on the other side of the ball, you're not really worried about that guy throwing it. So that helps too. That gives your team confidence through and through. We'll finish out the
I
NFC
agree.
East here. We have the Washington Commanders on the road facing the Denver Broncos. Those Broncos, they scored touchdowns on the first 3 drives. My first thought was, maybe they listened to the pod last week because I had 3 conditions for me to tune in to these bum ass motherfuckers. Unfortunately, after being up 18, they find themselves in a Hail Mary situation where Russell Wilson does complete the Hail Mary to make it 35-33, but they failed the 2-point conversion. Sam Howell in his first road start goes 27 to 39, 299 yards and 2 touchdowns, leading the Washington Commanders on a comeback victory and a 2-0 record on the season. And with that being said, I'll put my sock in my mouth and shut up because I did not see this coming.
No, look, Sam Howell, number one, I thought he looked pretty good. I can't even front on that. Slow start, but to be able to be your first year as a starter, to battle back, beat Sean Payton and the Broncos in Denver, that's a good sign of things to come for Washington, even though it might be, up and down throughout the season. But Washington still got a hell of a front seven on defense. That defense is no slouch. So I think they just started slow and they willed their way to victory. So credit to them. But on Denver's side, man, you're looking at the last year of Wilson being a quarterback there and I don't know where his career goes after. Maybe
You might be
nowhere.
looking at the last month.
Look, if I am a Denver fan, if I'm anyone who follows Denver football or whatever the case may be, bro, at this point, that GM needs to be fired. You obviously keep Sean Payton because he's a good coach, but you get rid of Wilson. You got to tear the whole fucking thing down at this point and rebuild. You're the
It's
second
looking that
oldest
way.
team in the league. Like, it's time to rebuild, bro. Like, this is going nowhere. This team is putrid. It's awful. You're in a tough division. You're in a tough conference. If I had to guess, they're going to be a top 5 pick at the end of the year.
Yep. I put them right there in that conversation. They had no business losing this game. What can you say? Like I said, I'm not going to watch them until they reach my conditions. So they were almost there. They really were. Let's cap out this week. We have 2 Monday night games that are on right now. Carolina at New Orleans. Or New Orleans at Carolina, actually, and then Cleveland at Pittsburgh. But we'll cap off this episode with Miami at New England, the Sunday night football game. I think the Patriots in this one, they come up short 24-17. A pass from Mac Jones, who I think it was Gesicki, who laterals it back to Cole Strange, just short of the first down yarder or marker on 4th down. Patriots had some chances, man. I think they're just not talented offensively. I don't think that their guys can separate. They're not fast enough. Ezekiel Elliott, the tight end combination. I mean, the wide receivers don't really have burners like that. So I think that that's going to be a problem for this team because similar to the Detroit Lions, their margin for error offensively is very, very thin just because they don't have those playmakers. Different from the Lions just because the Lions don't play defense. New England obviously does play defense. They were able to keep Tyreek Hill in somewhat of check. He did end up scoring a touchdown down there on the goal line. Tua threw for 466 week 1. He had just about half of that in week 2. So, like I said, Bill Belichick is going to find a way to neutralize this offense. The surprise, though, was Mostert. He was able to run all over this defense up and down the field, and he was really the difference in this game for this Miami team. So New England falls to 0-2. Miami is now 2-0 on the season after that week 1 win against the Chargers. What do you think about this Sunday night football game, sir?
For me, it's just disappointing because I think this falls on Bill Belichick as he has done nothing to revamp that offense ever since Brady left. I mean, they've been very stagnant every offseason, not bringing in pieces to rebuild that offense, especially for Mac Jones. Mac Jones is definitely a quarterback who's capable of going out there and playing great games and putting up good stats. But I think Bill Belichick, his sole focus is always defense, and it shows year to year. But when you don't got an offense who can complement that, it puts you in a tough spot, and you end up being a little bit mediocre-ish. So it's not a good look for what we know of Bill Belichick and the type of coach he is, and his legacy. But Miami on the other side, as much as I'm not a Tua guy. I think he's a solid quarterback, but I think that they're so loaded with weapons everywhere. Um, it's going to be interesting to see, especially when Jalen Ramsey gets back. I think this is a team to watch out for down the stretch. I think they're going to be a team that you can. I mean, you can't take them lightly now at all, but when they get Jalen Ramsey back on defense, and I mean, he's going to bring some swagger to that defense that they don't have right now. And man, they could do
There's
some
just
damage.
firepower everywhere, bro. I mean, because Xavier Howard's
Like,
already a top 10 DB. If Jalen Ramsey can be 80% of what he was, who's going to be able to throw on this team? I mean, maybe you can
right.
run on them up the middle, but Bradley Chubb had a pretty decent game yesterday. So
And
this team
then
is pretty good overall everywhere.
it is, bro. And then and the thing with Tua is he doesn't have to. We know he can't throw the deep ball that well, so and he doesn't have to. I mean, he's got those.
Takes
He's
every
got
time.
Waddle and Hill who can just take it, 5-10 yards off the line of scrimmage and do what they do with the ball in their hands. He just lets them do the work. He's just pretty much got to manage the game and be one of those guys that just not kind of some sort of dink and dunk and let them do the rest. That's all this offense is. And then they got a solid stable of running backs who can keep the chains moving. So this is not a team to take lightly. It's a team to watch out for the rest of the season, and they are one of the top AFC teams in my eyes. So, yeah, they're up there with the best of them in the AFC for sure. And I think they'll get into the playoffs. I think they have the possibility to make some noise in the playoffs. And I think that's the difference between AFC and NFC right now. I think the top two NFC teams, you got the Rams and the Cowboys right now, with the Eagles right behind.
I mean,
Um,
49ers.
49ers and then Cowboys, top two. And then you got Eagles right behind those two for NFC. After that, it kind of drops off significantly to where it's wide open. Whereas the AFC, I don't think the top two AFC teams are as good as the top two NFC teams.
I don't know
But
who they are either.
right, exactly. But the AFC is so well rounded in that top five that you don't know what to expect at this point in the season.
Mm-hmm.
So, but if you had to guess right now, you're gonna say, if you had to guess right now, who's the NFC Championship teams going head to head? Cowboys, 49ers. That's who everyone should be saying right now.
I think, yeah,
Whereas the
70% of those
AFC,
bets would be on that game right now.
you know,
And the other
in
30 would have
AFC,
Philly instead of Dallas.
yep, and AFC you can't make that bet right now, at least confidently. So,
Right.
and that's a credit to the AFC conference as a whole, because I do think as a whole AFC is much better than the NFC. But the top 2, 3, the NFC has got that in my book. But it's, playoffs are a whole different beast in the regular season. I mean, it's a 1-game season each game. So, but Miami, they're definitely as long as Tua stays healthy, they'll get Jalen Ramsey back. I think that this team can do some major damage and make a name for themselves.
I agree. And I'm glad you brought this team up. So I'll let you start this one off because I forgot about it. We did have San Francisco on the road at the Los Angeles Rams. They did get a victory 30-23. What'd you think about this one? And then we can get out of here.
I think this game the Rams just caught the Niners off guard. I think the Niners kind of took them a little lightly and let the Rams stay in this game longer than they should have, because the Niners are hands down a much better team than them. But the Rams, they're quietly proving to people like, hey, we're not a team to count out just yet. And look, with how open the NFC is after those top 3 teams, who knows what this Rams team can do based off how they're starting off the season. And then they get Cooper Kupp back. I don't know. They could be a sneaky team that sneaks into the playoffs.
So that's what I wanted to ask you. They threw 30 more times in San Francisco, but they did outgain them in yards. Obviously, coming into the season, I had this team probably bottom 5 talent-wise, and then losing Cooper Kupp, I probably bumped that up to bottom 3. What do we think of this Los Angeles Rams team? Because they blew out Seattle week 1. They played tough as hell against San Francisco. It took 2 late turnovers, honestly, to seal this game for the 49ers. Do we feel like the Rams can be a playoff contender, or is this fool's gold right now?
It could be either or, but I'm gonna say that I think that they could be a contender for the playoffs. I just look, they still have Stafford, bro. Stafford is still a good quarterback in this league. Like, let's not act like he's not. Look at all the numbers and stats he put up with Detroit and all those abysmal years in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's the sole reason. Him and Megatron, obviously, were the sole reason they kept Detroit relevant.
That team
So
might have got sold without those two.
look, once you get Cooper Cup back, and then you got this. I don't know how to say his name, but this new dude,
Well, that's the thing. They don't have a run
Puka or
game,
whatever.
and we don't even know how to pronounce the wide receiver's name. And Schoeneker, whatever the other dude's name is. So it's like, I can't put faith in this team every week. I don't like Cam Akers. I don't like that run
It says a
team.
lot, though. It says a lot for this guy who I can't. I think his name's Puka or something like that.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
to be a rookie, no name, and then you come out and you set the record for the most receptions in a rookie's first 2 games. I mean, you got a rapport with Matt Stafford. Obviously, he trusts you to no end. If you have that, once you get Cooper Cup back, I mean, dude,
He went
this
15 for
team is gonna be
147. I didn't know that.
like, this dude is for real, bro. If they have that type of dynamic of an offense with him and Cooper and Matt Stafford, and I mean, look, and then you got McVay still. I think this is a well coached team. So I'm not gonna say that they're fool's gold right now. Because if you can go out, blow out Seattle, you can go and make it a tough game with 49ers, 2 division games. I mean, you're putting the world on notice of, hey, don't count us out.
Yep, I agree. But I just can't get with that. I agree, but I just can't get with it. They're gonna have to keep
We
showing
gotta
me.
we gotta come back to week 6, week 7. We can revisit this
Yeah,
topic.
in about a month, that's the perfect time. Yeah. As of now, though, that's it for me. We got 2 Monday night games on. I'm gonna try and catch second half of both of them. You got anything else for the people?
No, bro. Like I said to you before, I think this NFL season is gonna be just a weird one in my eyes because I feel like between the two conferences and the league as a whole, everything is so fucking wide open right now for anyone to go out there and win this whole thing by the end of the season. I think this NFL season is much more balanced along amongst the teams than we've seen in quite some time.
Yeah.
Besides the top, obviously you got let's say the top 7 teams between the NFC and AFC, 3 in the NFC, 4 in the AFC. Besides those 7, everything else is up for the taking, bro. Like, there's no team out there besides your bottom 2, bottom 3 who we know are just trash.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
That's what
There's
makes
always gonna be a
that's what
few
makes the
trash
NFL
teams.
fun when it's like this, because week to week it's a battle, bro. Teams are
I
going
agree.
head to head up against each other and going to the final whistle, and that's what you want. You don't want constant blowouts. You don't. This is a professional league. These are professional athletes doing their job. Like, this is what I've been hoping for quite some time, is just to get these 32 teams much more balanced to make these early mid season games relevant, because
I agree.
a lot of times you see the first 2 weeks and you're like, okay, we know who's not going to be in the playoffs. We know that they probably are going to shit the bed or whatever. But I can't honestly say, besides those bottom 3 teams in the league, I can't really say, like, I can't say that Tampa Bay won't make the playoffs, especially in that division they're in. I can't say the Vikings won't make the playoffs because of how our division is. Like, it's everything is up for grabs. Like, these teams just gotta find ways to go out and win games.
The NFC South, barring a tie, we'll have 3 2-0 teams by the end of tonight, which is, who the fuck would have thought that?
That's what
So,
I'm
like you
saying.
said,
Like,
man, this is one of those seasons, man. You just never know what's gonna happen.
so it's gonna be interesting one week to week as we go through this and dissect it. It's I mean, it's what you love to see it because it makes the season more fun, but it's also more stressful as a fan as well. So,
Yeah.
um,
There's no
yeah.
cakewalks.
So I mean, tomorrow will be fun when we record because we'll see how these 2 Monday night games fare, and then I don't know. I'm already dreading these preview weeks because these picking these games are so fucking tough, and I mean, there's so many upsets every week. You feel confident when you make your picks, and then you're watching the games, and you're like, "Holy shit, I did not see that coming."
No question, bro. It's been a couple times this week so far. This season, I should say, where it's been like, there's no way I saw that coming. I would have bet my bottom dollar that Seattle was wiping the floor with the Rams week 1. Vikings were
Right.
mopping the floor with Tampa, whatever the case may
Yep.
be. But that's fun. Like you said, there's the Chicago, the Arizona, the Denver, the teams that are probably going to be bottom of the barrel. But, I mean, Washington can go beat, I mean, maybe not Dallas or Philly, but they can go beat a contender-ish at Green Bay and Atlanta whenever. So I think that'll
That
be real fun this season.
and that's and that's the thing too is like, especially the further we get into the season, the more injuries start to pile up, and then it's like a team you don't expect to go out and beat this team. It happens because
They were just
injuries play
healthy.
a big factor in these
Yeah.
games. So it's going to be interesting once we get to week 16, 17 and all that, like seeing the final records amongst these divisions and teams. There's going to be some eyebrows in a few of them. I guarantee it. Where did you see this coming, bro? Like no. Like it is it's gonna be a, and like I said to you before, like each week you think you got it figured out and you're like, I've done my studying, I've done my research. Like I think, but it just doesn't ever pan out that way. It's like this team all of a sudden wanted to show up and knew you picked against them and they said, fuck you.
I think the numbers say 2 or 3 teams every year out of each conference get switched out of the playoffs for a new team. So it's not like we shouldn't expect this, but we go in thinking, okay, easy, easy, easy. And then it's not easy from the first kickoff. And
Yep.
it's like, do I even know what I'm talking about on here? But
I know,
that's the beauty
exactly.
of the game.
Yep.
But that's it for me. I'm going to catch these games. End of the first quarter, Pittsburgh is up 7-3 on Cleveland. I'm not sure about the other game at the moment. Last I saw it was 6-3. So I'm about to get to it. If you're good, I'm good.
Yeah, bro. Until next time.
Until next time, sir. We appreciate y'all. Peace.